I've helped a lot of people make the transition to tech sales and also make the next move in their tech sales career. And it often comes up and is asked to me, how do I negotiate salary? And I want to talk through a few different things. Obviously, the tactical level of the actual conversation we have once we have an offer in hand. But even before that, what are the things we can do that put the salary range in our favor, make the conversation and our point of view have the most leverage before we even worry about a specific number? So I think this starts at the interview level. First of all, if anyone ever asks you your specific salary, it's best to not give a specific number or even a range. This is for a few different reasons. One, if you give them a range and it's below what they're willing to pay for someone, they're gonna say, yeah, we can do that. And you might be excited, but you might be leaving money on the table. Conversely, if you give a specific number and it's way above what they're looking to pay for the position, it may qualify you out, and you may have been willing to take a number that was lower if it's a desired company, etc. That's more of a personal decision you need to make. But obviously, what I would recommend is going on something like Glassdoor, trying to see if you can find approximate salaries at these positions. RepView is another great example as well. But these will give you an idea of the average salary of folks that are there. You can use that as a proxy. If it's close to what you want, maybe you can negotiate up from that a little bit. Or if it's way below what you're looking for, candidly, it might not even be worth the time interviewing. But once you're interviewing, again, you want to let them do the work in terms of talking about salary expectations. So for instance, a lot of times a recruiter is going to come to you and say, hey, what is your desired salary or desired salary range? And instead of giving a number, instead of giving a range, the question that I use every time is, well, I know there's a lot of things to consider when bringing me in from another organization, or I know a lot of it's experience dependent. I'm just curious, do you have a set budget for this position at company? And you can deflect the conversation away from any specific number. Usually one of two things is gonna happen at that point. They're gonna give you a number or a range that will give you a good proxy of if it's worth pursuing further. Conversely, they may come back and say, yeah, it's heavily dependent on our end. Would love to know kind of where you're at, and they might try and press you again for a specific number, at which point just say, hey, I know there's a lot going on and I don't necessarily have a specific range. I'm looking for the best fit. I know at least what I've seen online looks like it's probably in the range of what we're working for. And then I know, a few conversations I have going on in parallel, it seems to be within that range as well. So yeah, maybe a conversation we can have as the interview progresses, and push it off. Don't give a specific number. Whatever you do, it is best in almost all cases to not give a specific number, or the only exception being if you see a job that you really want and their average salary is, say, $300K for an enterprise role. If you ask them like, hey, I'm seeing online, the typical OTE is around 300K, is that at least in the ballpark of what we're talking about? And they say yes, and that's what you're going for, then we're all good. But again, as best as possible, as much as possible, I would 100% avoid giving a specific number. So we've set proper expectations now at the beginning of the interview process. We go through the interview, and ideally, we don't have to bring salary up again. If it does come up again from a different manager, you can use that same deflection of, yeah, I know there's a lot to consider, and I know I'm looking at a couple different opportunities. Based on your website, it looked like this was the typical range, or you might not say that at all. Again, flip it on them and say, I know there's a lot to consider. I'm just curious, do you have a budget for this specific position? Now again, let's fast forward beyond that and say that we have a verbal or written offer in hand at this point. You know what the OTE is, and they've given you their initial number. If it's not what you want, there's a few different things to consider. So for one, as an example, if you're an SDR, again, there's no right answer. I'm just trying to provide the framework of how you might break this down. If it's your only offer, or it's by far the best offer you've gotten from a company standpoint or whatever it may be, and you feel pretty confident that they have other candidates that they might be interviewing, it's up to you. There's no right answer here, but I wouldn't negotiate super heavy. If it's more worth getting your foot in the door, getting in that company, what is negotiating an extra 5 to 10%? Now, again, feel free to disagree. I'm not saying that, but that is one thing to consider. If you think that there's some chance that you might come in, ask for a specific number, and they may say, hey, sorry, no, we've got other candidates at this price point, that's worth considering. I'm not saying it's gonna happen. I've never seen it happen myself, but I've tended to play a little more conservative in that regard. I'm not going in super aggressive. Let's take an example as an SDR. You just got an offer for, say, 80,000, and you want to ask for 90,000 total comp. The initial base and commission was 40,000 base, 40,000 commission. You want 45. I don't think a roughly 10% increase is a totally unreasonable answer. Assuming you think that you are far and away their best candidate, here is how I would negotiate. Again, only once we've got an offer in hand, a written offer given to us, because at that point they've clearly selected you and want you on the team. You can do this very politely, and I would recommend doing it on the phone, but I would call the hiring manager, the HR manager, whoever you've had the most contact with or built the most rapport with, and say, so-and-so, I really appreciate this offer. I think it's great, and I'm ready to sign today if by chance we can do 90,000 OTE with a 45-45 split. Come with a very specific ask and make it very clear that your intention is to sign with the company if they can match that OTE. Again, some people may disagree with that approach, but it has worked for me in the past. I have gotten 10% lifts on OTEs when I've negotiated by doing that, because again, I use that maximal leverage, like, hey guys, listen, this is gonna be a great fit. You clearly want me to work for you. I clearly wanna work here. And if we can meet at this price, I'm ready to sign today. And so that way it makes it compelling. It lets them know, hey, listen, this is my best offer and you're ready to go, no fluff. You know, some people may disagree. Some people may draw out the tactics and be a little more passive. And there's no right or wrong answer. But I will tell you, having that conversation on the phone, one, they're gonna respect the hell out of you for doing that, as opposed to like email or being dodgy with your messaging and trying to draw them out. Two, having a very clear ask, in my opinion, speaks well to you. Like, it sets the tone, even though you're asking for more. It sets that tone that, hey, listen, here's what I want. If you guys are ready to do that, I'm ready to move forward. Assuming you come through with that promise on your end, I think it's a win-win all around. The company's excited you negotiated a little bit, and also they're very happy about the fact that you can be very forward and very direct and very respectful in doing that. Quickly, again, to recap, one, if you're early on in the process, do not give a specific number, and ideally avoid any type of range. There are ways you can deflect it by when they ask you, like, what's your desired salary? I'm just curious, is there a budget for this position? Or I see on Glassdoor as an example that the typical OTE range is this. Is that on par with this opportunity? They may say yes. They may come back and try and ask you again, or have a different person in the interview cycle ask you. And again, at that point, you could say, hey, I know there's a lot to consider based on years of experience, based on the opportunity. You know, based on some of the companies that I'm talking to and what I'm seeing on Glassdoor, I would expect this role to be around this range. Is that on par with the budget you have for this role? These are the kinds of questions you can ask, and set the tone right away. Leave it open-ended. Don't commit yourself to a number. That way you'll get a sense if by chance the salary is too low for your expectation, but also conversely, it will save you from coming in and saying, I want this much, and maybe it's just 20,000 over what they want, and you would take the job at a lower price because the badge is good on the resume, whatever it might be. Now, as we get to those final stages, again, wait till we have an offer in hand before we start negotiating. That should go without saying, and wait until you have a written offer, I might add. Like, the verbal's great, but wait until you have the written offer in your inbox. At that point, I would weigh out, one, especially if you're an SDR, are there other candidates that they might be interviewing that they could potentially reject, you know, if you came in with too high of an ask, and just go with a different candidate that may or may not apply? But two, when you do go for that ask, again, just be very clear, transparent, and honest. Hey, this is a great opportunity. I'm very excited about it. And if you guys can meet me at this price point with this OTE breakdown with base commission, whatever it is, then I'm ready to sign today, and I'm really excited to join. I'm sure there's people with competing theories who have had success, but in my mind, being that transparent, being that forward and honest is a win-win, because they'll respect you, one, for doing it on the phone. Always call and have that conversation on the phone. But two, just having clear, honest, and open expectations and reciprocating those on both sides is a great first impression as you go into the company. So I hope that helps. Best of luck to you if you're negotiating in those final stages, and we will see you next week. Thanks.